The movie is set in an undetermined future where a virus, which was deliberately released in 1996 in various locations around the world, has wiped out almost all of humanity, killing at least 5 billion people. That's not something you'd hear on the news, right? Because if 5 billion people died, I'm pretty sure all the news anchors have died too. So I guess it's just something that you just figure out. You know, you just go outside, you don't see anybody, you're like, yeah, that's about 5 billion people. Yeah. So, as a result of all these people dying, the remaining survivors have established a complex underground civilization because the Earth's surface is considered uninhabitable for humans, leaving animals to roam freely. Most of these apocalyptic movies have that, right? You see a city where like grass grows everywhere within the cracks of the streets, and there's a bunch of deer running around. I like that view. And in order to test for the presence of the virus, prisoners from time to time volunteer, air quotes, to put on protective gear and gather samples of insects from the surface. It's a way to punish the prisoners, I guess. That's why they make them go upstairs to collect some info. And one of these prisoners who volunteers is James Cole, who after collecting the samples is offered the opportunity to travel back in time to 1996 to find information about a group called the Army of 12 Monkeys. I mean, when you call your group the Army of 12 Monkeys, either two things is gonna happen. One, you're gonna destroy the world because you created some kind of virus, and two, it's probably an orgy group. People who get together from time to time and just have an orgy. I swear to you, if I hear somebody and they tell me they're in a group and it's called the Army of 12 Monkeys, come on, tell me you're not thinking the same thing. And Cole decides to embark on his journey, and he finds himself having vivid memories, almost as if he was dreaming of various incidents he witnessed as a child, including the murder of a man in an airport, which is a reoccurring theme that persists throughout the story. And when these scientists do the time travel thing, a miscalculation occurs, and they send Cole back to 1990, where he ends up being arrested for severely beating the arresting officers, resulting in his incarceration in an insane asylum. And Cole's psychiatrist, Kathryn, feels like she's met him before, but his very erratic behavior leads her to believe that he's mentally unstable. And as Cole becomes a resident of the insane asylum, he finds himself locked up with the other patients who suffer from various types of mental illnesses. I feel like I'd go crazy if I wasn't crazy and I was put with crazy people. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, that's like a crazy place where you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'm just gonna lose my mind here. Yeah. And during his evaluation by the hospital board, Cole requests a single phone call to communicate with the scientists of his present time so that they retrieve him. But when Cole makes the call, he's answered by a woman with a bunch of crying children, and she's unaware of any scientists. I guess our boy here wanted to call the future? And during his stay in this asylum, Cole meets Jeffrey Goines, a fellow patient who attempts to help Cole escape by giving him a key to his room. And despite Goines' efforts, Cole is quickly recaptured and placed in an isolation room. However, when Kathryn and her boss, Dr. Fletcher, enter his room to check on him, he suddenly disappears because he was taken back to his present time by the very scientists who sent him here. And upon his return, Cole is interrogated by the scientists and he's given a second chance to complete his mission. I don't know what that means, a second chance. More like you're making him go again. You're not offering him a chance, okay? You know what? Let's just try to move on from that. And of course, he tells them that he was sent to the wrong gear and that he was institutionalized and drugged. And this was just a minor calculation on the scientist's part. And the second miscalculation, and yes, they send him to the wrong timeline again, and this time they send him to the battlefields of World War I, where he gets shot in the leg and he crawls around in the trenches in pain. And as Cole was desperately trying to survive, he spots his friend Jose, who was wounded and being carried on a stretcher. And before Cole can connect with Jose, he finds himself being propelled into the future again. Arriving in 1996, Cole kidnaps Dr. Kathryn with the intention of convincing her that he is from the future. And he believes that if he can get her on his side, he'll have a better chance of stopping the Army of 12 Monkeys and saving humanity. I swear, every time I say the Army of 12 Monkeys, it's like, I just want to giggle, but I have to contain myself. Okay, moving on. And despite a few setbacks along the way, Cole ultimately decides that he wants to stay in 1996 with Dr. Kathryn. And here, he would eventually surrender to the inevitable destruction of human life. And together, they travel to Philadelphia, where they eventually come across a shabby storefront, which turns out to be the headquarters for the Army of 12 Monkeys. And despite their initial beliefs, they discover that the organization is actually dedicated to animal rights and freeing animals animals from abusive laboratories. And the members then claim that they've cut ties with Jeffrey because he became too radical and unpredictable, and then he went to work with their enemy, his father. And with this new information, Cole and Dr. Kathryn must navigate through the complex world of the army of 12 monkeys, all while trying to prevent the inevitable destruction of all human life. And they both arrive at Jeffrey's father's mansion, where Kathryn removes the bullet from Cole's leg that he picked up from World War I, but Cole's demeanor changes all of a sudden, and he decides to lock Kathryn in the trunk of their car, leaving her in the woods. And during a fundraising dinner, Cole meets with Jeffrey and listens to him as he rambles on about how Cole, when they were both housed in the asylum, was actually the one that gave him the idea to release a virus that would destroy humanity, which is pretty weird. But after leaving the dinner and being chased by security, Cole finds Kathryn in the woods. And while Cole rants about wanting to stay in Kathryn's timeline, she starts honking the car's horn, trying to attract the attention of Dr. Goines' security, who are actually searching for them. But when she turns back to find Cole, he's apparently disappeared. And Dr. Kathryn becomes convinced that Cole knows something about the future, as his predictions of minor events are a little too accurate. She hears about this disappearance of a 9-year-old boy, and the disappearance was just some prank. And the bullet that Kathryn removed from Cole's leg proves to be pre-1920, and this leads her to check a photograph from her research taken on the battlefield, which shows Cole's in the trenches, which is pretty impossible if you think about it, because this guy doesn't look 80. And convinced that the army of 12 monkeys poses a threat, Dr. Railly begins searching for Cole in order to persuade him to take up his cause again. And as Railly continues her investigation of the clues Cole was collecting, she makes her way to the shabby storefront in the Western District of Philadelphia that she and Cole had visited earlier, determined to uncover the truth. And just as she begins pounding on their door, Cole suddenly appears, looking very disheveled and convinced that he is delusional, and he implores Railly to help him. And upon entering the storefront, Railly finds Jeffrey surrounded by his followers and those who fear him. And he rambles on about how Railly found him, accusing her of using a complex computer system to predict his next location. And despite Railly's protests, Jeffrey and his loyalists leave, with him to carry out their plans, and soon after, news reports surface of the 12 monkeys releasing all the zoo animals into the streets of Philadelphia, along with the kidnapping of Jeffrey's father. And Cole and Kathryn learn of the 12 monkeys' plan from the news, and Cole realizes that they are not the real threat, and he leaves a frantic voice message to warn Railly of this. And just as he hangs up, Jose appears and approaches Cole with the orders to complete his mission, handing him a revolver. And Cole initially refuses, but then notices a guard from the present glaring at him, making it clear that Dr. Railly will be killed if Cole does not comply. And meanwhile, the police are after Cole for the supposed kidnapping of Dr. Railly as they try to elude capture at the airport, and Dr. Railly suddenly recognizes a man named Dr. Peters. And she rushes over to Cole to frantically point out Dr. Peters to him, with Jose overhearing her commotion. And Dr. Peters, who used to work with Jeffrey Goines' father in the virology lab, is revealed to be an apocalypse nut. I mean, this dude just wants the apocalypse to happen. He's really crazy about it. And this Dr. Peters manages to convince airport security that his biological samples, one for each of the cities on his itinerary, are actually harmless by briefly opening one vial and holding it very close to the screener's nose. But Dr. Railly, realizing the potential danger, alerts Cole and they set out to stop the man. But tragically, Cole is shot by the police in pursuit of the real culprit, who manages to escape and board a plane. And it was such an emotional scene. It was slow motion, and he was running, and Dr. Railly was like, "No!" And the cops like, bam, bam, bam! He gets shot in the gut, yeah, and he just falls down. And the death of Cole is witnessed by a young boy named James, who was with his parents at the airport. And this moment is revealed to be a memory from Cole's own future. And young Cole and Dr. Railly share a brief gaze before James's mother instructs her son to forget about the incident, and the family walks out of the airport toward their car. And in the closing scene, on a flight, Peter takes his seat and begins a conversation with a person sitting next to him. And as they chat, Peter realizes that the woman is none other than the lead scientist from the present day, who was sent back in time to study the virus in its original form so that a cure can be developed. And the scientist introduces herself as Jones and mentions that she works in the field of insurance, which Peters finds to be a very cryptic statement. However, Peter is aware that the lead scientist was responsible for studying the virus and finding a cure, and is curious to know more about Jones's role in all of this. And despite the vague introduction, Peter continues the conversation and engages with Jones, hoping to uncover more about her mysterious work in the insurance field and her connection to the virus. And that is how our movie ends. A very exciting movie. I really encourage you guys to check it out. I'll see you guys on my next recap. Remember to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.